Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. Tonight, we're just going to enjoy a late night coffee and chat session. I do kind of got a set topic for this one, but it'll interweave on a few other things. Just give me a second to make sure all these links get shared out. Everything looks good. But yeah, I kind of want to talk about, the normal stuff. Sanctuary city, border. I kind of touched on a few things on a Periscope I did earlier this evening. And it's, got me to thinking, I've heard a few people talk about it, because we've heard the proposal about, first it was said military, then it, got changed to National Guard, going to our border. And we do have a problem with our border. I don't think, a lot of people realize how big of a problem our border is. I don't have the answers. I'm not necessarily all for having our military guarding our borders. Hello, Free Spirit Press News. But then again, I got to look at what we've seen play out. Hello, Tacky Vanilla. What we've seen play out in other places as well. We do, when you start hearing of caravans coming, it reminds you of the refugees coming into the UK, into France, Britain. And the last several years, we've seen what's happened there. The uptick in violence, uptick in attacks. So I can see a real need that we need to do something and to secure our borders, because we can't have what's happening over in Europe happen here. And it'd be even worse here because we have sanctuary cities that once they get in these cities, they would be safely protected and harbored. That's dangerous. Don't get me wrong, because I know there are people that are trying to come into our country to flee persecutions. But for every one of those, you have the criminal element. You have those that really want to cause harm, those that want to get a foothold in this country and start doing the things we see happening in Europe and other places. There's many issues when we start talking about our military of any types, whether it be National Guard on U.S. soil. We do have the Posse Comitatus Act. We do have stuff written to keep, so we don't have armed military on our streets, which is very important. That's, one of the, kind of going to play devil's advocate with this a bit. It's also one of the problems when you would allow that to happen for our border, which I think our border needs to be secured and patrolled. We have open borders. Some of it has fencing, but it's easy to get around. You've got people coming in all the time. We do need a system that we can thoroughly patrol it. What is the right answer? I don't know. But saying we allow the military to do that, which is technically, when it comes to national security, we could play with the terminology of the words, caravan. One could say caravan, another person could say, well, that's an invasion, because they are invading our country. They are. They're coming in here illegally. But we have to be careful with those terms and how they're used. We also have to realize that, hey, when you do give an inch, we know how it goes. They love taking a mile. So we would have to be diligent, even with the National Guard on our border. But we also have to look at the facts. The facts are we don't have enough border police. We don't have enough ICE agents to be guarding and protecting our border. Our border is huge. We don't have enough people. To guard our border. That could be thought upon, using the drones to survey our border. But then we're getting into how much, when you give an inch, will they take a mile? Will they start using that in other ways? So yes, I do see where people are, are going to take sides on this. Where they're going to, it's a very touchy subject. And you guys know me by now. I don't shy away from touchy subjects because even when I first heard it, it's like, that's not such a good idea. But I had to sit back and think about it, and I had to talk to a few people. I had to talk to a few people I know that serve, what they thought. Even some of the hardcore constitutionalists that I know, and militia people that I know. Talk to them, got their opinions, their views. And as you guys would imagine, it was more than one-sided. Some were kind of a good idea, especially when you start talking about it. And all right, I'll send you the link. Send it to you in Hangouts. But I had to step back also and point out some of these people I was talking to. Well, let's look at what happened over in the UK, over in Britain and France. I personally know what happened in Brazil as well, how they protect their borders. Yeah, no, you're not. Nope. Between the Brazilian and Colombian border, nope. Don't go through it. Don't go where the fence is and the wire meshing and stuff is. You will get shot crossing that. It is heavily patrolled by military. You cross at the checkpoint, and that's very touchy even there. I've never figured out what the hatred between those two countries are, but there is one. But the most common thing for us to look at today is what's happened in Europe. We heard reports, we've heard the talk of the Somali cells. 1,000 people from Somalia that's sought refuges in Central America that are now coming towards us. We've heard the stories of Mexico issuing 20-day passes. You got 20 days instead of 180, which is the normal pass, to go through their country to cross into the United States. So when you start having countries do that, we've got problems. We also got a problem when we all know the headaches and griefs that are coming from Somalia. We know the pirates. We know the radical factions. We know what they've done when they've entered Europe, into Britain and France. We've all heard the horror stories. We've all seen the problems. So it is a very touchy subject. But when you start looking onto those things, you start seeing a very important need to get the control of our border somehow. What is the right way to do it? I don't know. That's what we're here to talk about.
Well, good evening, Drew. How you doing?
All right. Good evening.
Yeah, I finally was able to crawl out of the bat cave, I guess you'd call it, and I seen that you went live, and this was a topic I actually was hoping you would touch on. And if people don't know, There's actually, when I looked at satellite telemetry today, there was a complete satellite view of 11 buses, each holding approximately 72 people, not including children. These buses are packed. Literally, people sitting on top of people. The last time that this mass exodus did occur was in Europe. Now, my sister lives not far from Manchester City, and she pretty much has to walk. She works in theater. She literally has to walk from her apartment to her job almost with a cop. That things have gotten that far out of control in that community. And even though Man City has been bad for a long time, with the mass exodus of the refugees, now 5 out of every 8 violent crimes are being committed by not the local people, but those seeking political or refugee status level asylum. And once these people are here, they become our problem, because they're not just coming from Mexico. They're coming from deep in Central America, South America, Honduras, some even as far away as Brazil, Venezuela. I mean, this rabbit hole is quite extensive, with, in fact, 7 families coming as far away as deep in southern Chile and Argentina, seeking asylum in the United States. And these same people have been denied citizenship, even visas, to come to the United States on more than one occasion.
I mean, it's just like today, I read an article about, I think it was in California, this guy that's been deported before was charged with DUI, drinking and driving, and the judge let him go, free to go and free to stay in the U.S.
In L.A. County?
I believe that's what it was. There was one in Colorado, but this was a new one. This wasn't the one in Colorado.
There was one that was born in Orange County. Now, he was born here, just caught his 7th DWI, and also has 3 gun charges. Has citizenship in Mexico, and has a violent felony record in Mexico as well, and has shot and killed people here. Yet, at his previous court case in California, each time 120 days in jail, and they let him go. Now, this last case, speaking on DWI, he decided that the judge decided that he had caused enough chaos that the judge was going to mandate that he could have any choice of any quote-unquote sanctuary city in the United States, and the judge would personally see to it that he and his family would be set up in housing adequate to their needs, be it an apartment or a house, and a job and a driver's license in that state, so that he could get to and from work. A job that is being taken away, not just for him, but for his wife as well. Jobs that are being taken away from American citizens. And not that I am against people coming here seeking a better way of life, but there is a right way and there is a wrong way.
Exactly.
You know, if you do the lottery system,
is a new case. This guy was never. This guy was an illegal. It's clearly state. I'm reading through the article now, and he was in possession of a false identification.
Okay, that takes it to a whole nother level in and of itself, but also in that there's other problems that he's creating too many false pretenses there. I need to pull up the chat so I can see what is going on. I got to say good evening to to Tacky. I have not met Tacky before, so good evening. You can call me Bree. Everybody else does.
Put that link in the description to that article. I'm not going to share screens because it shows dude's face and name, and we know how funny certain sites can be about. Oh, I guess I am. Mean to do that. But yeah, the link's there for those that want to go read it. And we see more and more of this. You know, like I pointed out earlier, I'm happy to see that some of the sheriff's departments and police departments are stepping up in California and going against the status quo and saying, don't. All right, let me stop sharing. I accidentally share this again. Huh. Yeah, interesting. This page not found. Why is that?
Okay. I don't know what happened there, but for some reason my system. You're going to use camera. I'll go ahead and show the people what I look like today.
Try that one, Tech. I'm just on because I'm sure.
For whatever reason, I can't pull up the chat without.
Oh, that didn't work.
What?
Apparently, I can't share this link.
I shared it all over the place. I didn't share the Hangouts, though.
No, I'm talking about this link to this page.
Oh, the Hangout?
No, not the Hangout.
Oh, the video URL?
No, the article, the link.
Drop it in Hangout, and I will drop it.
It's not. It'll copy, and as soon as you put it in the chat, it'll say page not there.
Weird.
Weird. It does it all the time on certain things. Come on, give me just a straight URL link to this thing.
How you doing tonight, Tacky? Yes, Tacky, I'm speaking.
You know what?
And generally, you see me with my brace on, but I'm being abstinent tonight, so.
Link to the Twitter link.
There you go. It popped that time.
Nope, that page doesn't exist.
Interesting. Kind of waiting for a delivery from my son. As everybody can see, I've got.
Share this real quick. so people can see exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to this crap BS censorship that they like to pull. And I'm getting tired of it.
Speaking, yeah, you're speaking my language again.
So this is what I'm trying to share to you. Let me just show you that MyLink works. Page is there. So let me copy the link. And I know what's doing this.
Oh yeah, me too.
This is clearly YouTube screwing with people and screwing with the link.
There, now the link published.
No, it won't.
It's in the C box now.
Page not found when you click on the link. That's what it's doing. If I copy the Twitter link, you know how I share the Twitter links with you?
Yeah.
It'll say page not found on Twitter, or page doesn't exist on Twitter. But yet, right there it is. And
that's strange.
Deleted.
How long are we planning on having this stream go?
I don't know. As long as I feel like it, as long as it goes.
All right. I'm gonna have you guys on audio. I'm gonna go put my just in case it goes longer than a half hour. I'm not gonna flirt with disaster. I had a rough enough night as it was.
Let's see if I can put this link in my description.
Maybe. And by the time I get back in front of the camera, it should actually be propagated. At Tacky, as you all learn, censorship is one of my biggest pet peeves.
Well, I'm not going to get off that topic because that's not what the show's supposed to be about.
Right, but that just to let Tacky know a little bit about me. But this bus situation is what this show is about. Did you see any? Are you going to talk about the other half of this equation that is supposedly going in under executive order? Or are you going to save that for another night?
No, I'm getting into that.
Oh, good. Because I was hoping you would talk about that.
I actually was talking about it. Tacky, I put it in my description. It works in the in the description of the video. I don't know what. See, we've caught YouTube doing this before, and I can actually show you. Actually, I can show you guys that I have this turned off. Then your advanced setting. Nope, right there it is. I had this unchecked mark, and it got check marked again because this is one of the first things I do when I create an event. When I put everything in, I come to advanced settings and uncheck that. This is how they block links and stuff into your chats, for those that don't know. And I had this unchecked because I do it every time. It's like repetition. Now I probably can drop the link back in the chat. It'll work.
After my kid gets here, then I can get on my computer and actually use that sound system. But for the moment, we'll have to just go with the phone and call it good, if you don't mind, Drew.
Nope, not found. Still not working.
They're blocking this link for a reason. Then you may have to read through the whole article.
It's working in the description. That's all that matters.
If it's working in the description, then that's all that we care about. Once again, thank you, Drew, for dragging me on board. It seems like it's been we've been playing this tag game for how long again? Since I've been over here on Sons and Daughters of Liberty.
Oh, wow.
I make frequent appearances, but every once in a while I get a little raw, and I have to try to really curb my my tongue, if you get my drift. Because this is not my channel, and I respect Drew like a brother.
But, you know, it's like I was saying, when it comes to, you know, even with the executive order, I've talked to a few people about this, that executive order is kind of one of those that's a touchy subject with people because they don't want to see any form of military on U.S. soil doing military operations. I do get it and understand it, but we also got to realize this is a national security issue, as well
All right,
as
well,
to other countries and
all right, well, let's
their borders.
Well, let me flip the script then. Let's go back to what I'm not going to say any names. The event and the situation will describe itself. What about a certain said mayor who invited a certain said military organization?
But that's not U.S. military. There's a difference. We're not inviting another foreign military onto our soil, because that is also not allowed.
Right.
So there is a difference. We're talking about using our own troops to protect our border. I mean, so it goes back to what I said. You give an inch, they might take a mile, and it's something. If this would happen, we'd have to be observant. We'd have to watch and be due diligent to make sure that there's jurisdiction that is only on that border, that it doesn't stretch into the states.
Right, and that's
for border security.
But doesn't this fall back in line with the manifesto situation? Going back to 1897 to a degree.
You'd have to explain that one.
The more of that manifesto that started back in 1897.
All right. That's not explaining it.
The Communist Manifesto playbook.
I mean,
more of the
link it to that. What about the Alamo? Because it says, let's keep it all the way. In fact, what we're dealing with is another Alamo situation because we have foreign people invading our soil.
Right.
Therefore, it does not put it into a military aspect.
Right, and that's why I was...
During the Alamo, we just didn't have soldiers. We had senators as well that was at the Alamo.
We had a governor fighting at the Alamo as well. Anybody that could hold a rifle was summoned to the Alamo.
I mean, different times.
Right.
But at the same point, it goes... Because I know people most people that go for the border security wash out. They actually have a higher washout rate than the military does. Because what happens is when they're patrolling that border and part of their training, the first time they run into a corpse, a bloated, stinking, from the being out in the sun corpse, they lose it. They can't do the job.
Yep.
They have such a high turnout rate. So we do have a problem because we got people, they got a huge recruiting force.
Have you seen
the process because of what they encounter?
Have you seen the number of the uptick in commercials for border security on I mean, there's been a 120% increase in those commercials on my TV in southern Wisconsin.
I mean, it's been a whole huge uptick just not for Border Patrol, but ICE, immigration.
Yep.
But those are two different sections, though. ICE isn't part of the Border Patrol. That's what a lot of people don't realize. They're two separate organizations. I mean, it's, just like we have state, sheriff, and local when it comes to police departments. It's the same thing with Border Patrol, ICE. Like I said, I'm 50-50 on the executive order thing because, we do have technology that by allowing the military in, it opens up technology to be used to use as well, drones. But not that it matters. That's actually, they've already got laws on that. We found them in the NDAA stuff where they're allowing police departments to use militarized drones. So I remember.
Yeah, there's a case that you and I have to talk about in the green room about that.
Well, I think there was I remember when that guy held that bus, hijacked that school bus, and ended up holding up somewhere. They used a drone for surveillance, a military drone. That was a couple years back, 3 or 4 years back.
Yep.
So there it goes. There once more, we do have to be careful with what it's used, how they word things in these executive orders and bills, because there can come to a point where they are superseding the actual law enforcement, the ones that are supposed to protect the border. I can agree. It would be they are more needed and more equipped to deal with the border right now than any other agency we have.
Right.
Most countries, what does most countries use for their border? They use a form of MPs or military, whether it be military police or military units that protect the borders and does the gate stuff. So,
right. But my thought on this, I'm hesitant to call it an invasion, but that is almost what it seems, because there was a shot shown by CNN. Not that I hold a lot of credence to CNN. I was scrolling through the channels earlier in the evening before I passed out, and just like in Europe, well over 80% of the people getting on and off the bus were what appeared to be 21 to 25-year-old males, in very clean clothed, carrying a slightly above average backpack, a little bit more than a day pack, probably about a 3-day pack, and yes, Tacky, I'm okay. I went and I put my there's a long story about why I had to step away for a minute and put my what you see on cam on, because I can't sit long without it. I'm fine now. I'm good to go for a couple hours. But I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking. That shows that Drew's got an amazing fan base here. Shows that you're ultra respectful, and I appreciate that. It really means a lot. Is this the one that you were saying that is one of your younger viewers, Drew?
Yep.
Awesome. I will definitely remember to keep my tongue in cheek. amazing young gentleman that you've awoken up, and it is the future of this country. It'd be nice to have Tacky on some night to have Tacky's thoughts and views from somebody of that age group. Have you thought about that or talked to him about it?
The thought.
Because I'm 46 years old. And quite often I think, some of us older ones, we've all seen it. I myself, as a veteran, I've seen my time and I've done my time. I'd like to hear younger people's views on this sometime, whether it be here or it be over on the big channel. It really doesn't matter to me. Most people that come to my channel expect unedited and uncensored stuff, but it really doesn't matter to me. It is what it is, and I need to add this into the live streams on our other channel.
But I hear people talking about this very subject all week, and I've heard it on the news just because I don't have a choice, because I can hear it from down all the way upstairs.
From many of the other channels that we circle.
No, actually, I've only heard a couple people talk about it publicly on YouTube, or then I've seen them post stuff on Twitter. And don't get me wrong, I get where they're coming from. I mean, I have that kind of mindset myself, but I also have the mindset that I believe our military should be allowed to be armed when they're on compounds here in the U.S. or when they're in their recruiting offices.
I have said that.
See, that's one of those things where there is, when you start talking about the Posse Comitatus Act, that is another reason why they're not armed on military bases here in the U.S. and why they're not armed in their recruiting offices. So there is.
Well, let me take that a step back here just a little bit. Before I got injured, I was on military bases all over the country on a regular basis, and majority of the men and women that I worked with and served with, majority of them at least had their sidearm with them, whether it was chambered or not, depending upon where they were at on the base. Certainly, one half of the base, they were not allowed to carry at all, only the MPs, which causes a problem. But I've been to so many as a journalist, I've been to so many of those recruiting center shootings that it is unconscionable to think that they don't have weapons, yet every National Guard recruiting center that I have ever been to, within 250 feet of where the recruiting office is the armory room. Every single one. But then again, most of the recruiting centers that I've been to for the Guard are usually the HQ for that detachment as well. So that would stand to reason.
Yeah, I was going to say the recruiting agencies around here, unless it's the Guard or the Reserves, which you actually pretty much well for them, you go to their actual HQ base, wherever it's stationed at area. As far as your military recruiting offices, oh, they're nowhere near the military compounds. They're like
Yeah.
downtown in the cities where, so, I mean, it is an issue. And I see where people
Well,
get little feisty and fusty about it, but the bottom line is, do we want to see what's happening in France and Britain right now?
well,
Because
here's another
if we
here's
don't,
another little spin. We're getting ready for here in just a couple of months. We are getting ready for graduation in the spring, and every year when it gets closer to the spring, all the recruiters spend a phenomenal amount of time at the schools trying to get their quota in for the month. And we just had
ever.
2 recruiters get viciously assaulted literally by these anti-gun kids that are coming up at a local high school.
Well, I mean, yeah, let's look why. Because the last one, heaven forbid, but, the last one, well, they kind of pointed out the ROTC.
Yep.
Which, that is funded by the military, funded by Pentagon to recruit because they get a pay grade if they join when they finish school. Or not a pay, you know what I mean, not a pay grade, but a bump grade instead of being, private.
They get a PFC.
They get an upgrade in rank. So, I mean, yeah, and that got pointed out in mainstream media, which, yes, this ties in with the gun debates as well. Now we got all these gun debates. So, yeah, it hurts the recruiting. Recruiting's at an all-time low. It's been at an all-time low. And that is the problem. And it's going to get worse because you bring up a point. But I also know from my area, we haven't had recruiters come into our schools forever. They just stopped doing it because previous administrations.
Well, when you look at the number, you got a bad echo coming in on your end too.
I shouldn't. I don't hear it. I don't got nothing playing in the background.
And I've got the sound. The video actually turned off on my phone. Right now oh, okay. That's I might have to jump to my computer then. The strange thing is our active duty military forces are at a pre-Vietnam War level by as much as 30%.
Hey, Tacky, was that coming in on my end or her end? Because you were coming in clear when I muted my mic to listen.
It's weird.
It's not weird. It's Hangouts.
Yeah.
It's just like my Periscope I did earlier. No one. I even had to go double check to see if it. I had to go double check to see if it even posted, and it did. It's same crap on me all the time.
I did a scope earlier today, and talking about something similar about this, about the sanctuary city stuff, and oddly and ironically, well, no, not oddly and ironically, even though it said that I was live, the video is not showing in my list. I went to my desktop control. It is not showing there. It is not showing that I did a Periscope on my phone, and I have a pretty advanced phone, and it is not showing, period.
You know, this censorship crap is getting old real fast. You can't really do anything anymore. If you're not getting hammered on one section, you're getting hammered on the other section. You can't have conversations about topics like this or about what happened yesterday. And, you know, I called it. I called it. I was talking to you. I said, well, watch. First, they're going to blame it on a creator.
Yep.
And they're going to blow it out of proportion. And we haven't heard the end of this. She pops in from time to time. I haven't seen her on... Actually, I haven't seen her on a few other people's chats either. Normally she's there.
She popped in on my last one that I did with you, Drew.
Yeah, and she was on the one before, the one on this channel, like that, the day before. So, but she hasn't been on other people's channels.
I'll reach out and send her a direct message tonight if it's not too late, and make sure she's okay. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Tacky. I will reach out to her personally and make sure she's okay. Well, I'm 46, and you've seen the condition that I'm in, so and being in a chair too doesn't make things much easier for me. But everything for me is it doesn't. You're very welcome. I believe in complete transparency, and my viewers deserve to know about what's going on with me. I don't hide behind a JPEG or anything like that. Although I really like this fireside chat logo you got that you created tonight. This is very fitting for a late night.
I can't do the real thing outside like I'd want to.
I'm actually thinking about doing that very thing. Maybe once I get things sorted out. Tomorrow evening, Drew, you and I need to have a green room chat. If you get my drift, maybe we'll go to that other platform, if you get my drift, and I'll send you the direct URL for that. And maybe we won't have a lot of the issues that we've been having. Maybe not.
We will. Me and Rob's been having issues on it. We've gotten kicked out of it when we started talking about certain subjects last week that was in the mainstream stuff. Yeah, it's happening even there.
Mine hasn't been used in a year, so maybe we'll get lucky. But there's yeah, thanks, Tacky. We could use all the luck we can get at this point. But there's a lot of hot topic issues. One of the other issues that I know that
I don't want to jump around on all the hot topic issues, because the bottom line, it's like I've said in my last few videos, it all boils down to one issue: freedoms.
And this
can fall right under the grounds of freedom.
This actually falls into one of the issues that we actually covered on a while back, and was primarily a more of a, I hesitate to use the term refugee, but it was more majority of the people in this encampment were people awaiting they had went through the proper channels, filed for their green card, all that stuff, did everything legal. And their tent city was set ablaze by the city fire marshal.
Those aren't refugees, though. That's American citizens, homeless American citizens. There's a difference.
No, they haven't been granted citizenship yet, but they are very, very well on their way. And this was a tent city created by the city, sanctioned by the city, and this was up in Seattle.
Well, I also know places here in the U.S. that they've done that too, in California, that were U.S. citizens.
Yep. I actually covered one of those.
That's the other issue. They don't do it in the sanctuary cities. You know, that's where, you know, we do have a problem. And it's just not our border problem. Our border problem, it can actually be really worse if we don't do something with it, because we have these sanctuary cities that gives illegals a safe harbor. You know, I don't want to, that's why I said I don't really want to jump around on too many topics, because we do have, when we deal with the border, that also has to get, you start getting into the drug problems, the cartels, the gangs. Then we have these sanctuary cities that give them safe places to harbor and come and hide as refugees. They're not even refugees. They're illegal. You know, there's a right way to enter this country.
Did you see that article in the Chicago Tribune about the city of Chicago issuing the city essentially city credentials for undocumented?
Yeah.
I mean,
they got that from California. California is the one that started that.
I mean, what's
That went a step farther. That went to saying they could use that ID to even vote with.
Yeah, and I was like, don't you have to be a United States citizen to legally cast a vote in this country?
Here's the point, though. Here's the point that we can kill any debate and talk about this. If they don't have documentation, that means they're here illegally. Because you either have a green card or a work permit that allows you to come here, or a school visa. That is your paperwork. Or you have a tourist visa. That is your paperwork. You don't get issued any other forms of ID. If you don't have those, that means you're here illegally. Because you don't have a birth certificate, and you definitely don't have a Social Security card, which is a citizen's requirement. When you are born, you are given a Social Security number and a birth certificate. That is your identification. That says you are a citizen. You were born in this hospital, in this county, in this city.
All right, so that kind of opens it up to a culture of people that you and I are both very familiar with that are not born with a Social Security number. You know where I'm going with this. And they pay no taxes whatsoever. And to date, there's only been, that I've been able to track down, there's only been 11 state-level convictions brought against these people because they're quote-unquote sovereign people based upon religious right. So how does that stack up against this?
I mean, truthfully, who knows? I mean, that's where they put the forms of Social Security card, birth certificate. That was the implementation to get rid of the sovereign citizen, because a sovereign citizen does not pay tax, does not need a driver's license, because that is their right as a U.S. citizen born here. And there's that breed, that is a dying breed. There's only so many left, and you won't know them because they're not going to talk about it out loud. I only know of 2, and they're up there in age.
Right, but we're talking about a specific group that have alienated themselves, and yet we've seen them with all of the modern conveniences, i.e. phones and other things.
That's the other problem with the world today. We got to be in debt, slaves to a fucking master that wants to keep us in debt.
Oh, that's going to be for another video in and of itself.
See, that's what. But see, you're trying to make a point, and the point is that's what they don't. That's what they're against. That's why they're sovereign citizens. That's what they don't believe in that, and they're not going to allow themselves to be taxed. They'll barter, and they'll work under the table, because you can still find under the table jobs, and they will pay for in cash. It's just like me. I live on needs, not wants. You know, my needs come before my wants, and I live within my means. When you start living outside those means, you start putting yourself in debt. Once you become in debt, you become owned, controlled. If you don't pay that loan, you'll lose it.
But you know where I was going with this, and
I do know where you're going with it, but I mean, we could say the same thing for the Native Americans.
And yet they're
on the land they're on. The feds own it. The feds take that land whenever they want and relocate them.
And they do on a semi-regular basis when it's convenient for them, they do. So it's well, actually, Tacky, to be perfectly honest, I put myself through college on a triple degree, and at 46 years of age, my college debt is paid in full.
Yeah, well, I do have military and other things.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I work.
College, you weren't paying off your debt. I'd still be paying my college debt right now if I finished out my degrees.
I mean, I literally worked 3 jobs to do so.
My parents made too much money, so I couldn't get financial aid. Even though I was an independent, living on my own since the age of 18, it didn't matter. And the way the laws are passed, with what Obama did, most parents are responsible for their kids and can claim their kids up till they're 26. Just like, you know, let's use my brother's for instance. He's got 4 kids, pays child support on all 4 kids. Well, the one's going to be turning 18 in a couple of years. But guess what? If she decides to go to college after she's 18, he's just got to pay for her education.
Yeah, I think that's a bit asinine, to be honest. But
I do know where Tacky's coming from because I've been there with education. I know people that went there. My ex was finishing out her doctorate. And she's had to take time off, you know, and she's going to be in debt for probably the rest of her life. She's my age.
Yeah. You know, and I actually, I thought about that for, and that's the reason why I didn't actually go back and finish what I started, because I didn't want to have another $400,000 in loans and debts and whatnot, because that's about what it would have been, was an additional 400 plus and another 6 years of school, when I was already spending half my time in the field and whatnot. So it just didn't fit the time, and now I'm kind of glad that I didn't. But you know, hindsight is 20/20. But I ran into, and I'm kind of glad you brought this up, because I ran into just yesterday. I was out at the hospital having lunch, and I ran into over half of my graduating class. And we are talking about this very topic, about student loans and whatnot. And keep in mind, all of my classmates, all the ladies and 4 of the guys that graduated nursing school with me, are still $70,000 to $75,000 or more in debt yet. And they've been working for 20 years plus in the industry, in nursing, and at high levels of nursing. And that should say something. Not to say anything bad about the field, or detract or deter anybody from it. But when it costs you almost $500,000 for 6 years of schooling, and then if you specialize in an area, add another 100, 150 to that, you've got problems. You know, it's sad,
Yeah,
but
you're a U.S. citizen. You're not an illegal.
but
I mean, that's where all the money. Keep it real. We're paying taxes to support illegal people.
But yet,
I don't want to get off track from the subject.
But yet, I was just talking to the admissions director today at my local technical college, and the technical college that I started my degree at, when I started there in 1990, the primary language spoken was English. Now it is a secondary, and if you do not speak fluid Spanish, you don't get anywhere in this rural technical college. 80% of the instructors, majority of the textbooks are now in Spanish. 80%.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, pick up your phone. What's the first thing they ask? Spanish?
Press 1.
For Spanish. Not press 1 for English anymore. It's press 1 for Spanish. Press 2 for English. It used to be press 1 for English.
Yep.
I mean, but that's the little things that people don't pay attention to. Or they forget, or they're younger and they've never realized that it used to be press 1 for English. I mean, that is a lot of the problems. I mean, we're paying out more money You know, even though they said we're not going to give sanctuary cities no money, they still do. You know, the major issues is also our borders. You know, and that's kind of where I want to go, because we have to realize, because I'm all about the history. Show people the history, or show them something that they can see. Because obviously we live in a day and age where people's got to see something to believe it. And that's the other problems from the other topics I've been talking about the last couple of weeks, when we start dealing with censorship, controlled narratives, and you can't show these things. We all seen the videos, we've all read the articles, we all hear the horror stories of what happens over in Europe. That was because of allowing people to cross freely into their borders.
Exactly, you know, and you know, the ones that I feel sorry for, you know, it's not so much our generation. It's the, you know, I hear a lot of people, they always come to me and they always reach their hand out and they try to tell me, oh, you're an inspiration to me and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I'm a nobody. You know, people that are an inspiration to me are people like Tacky, young people that are sitting in rooms like this at 11:30 at night my time. I don't know where he's at in the world, but you know, people that are in the know and are, I'm sure he takes what he hears here and he's talking to his friends about it and trying to wake them up.
Well,
And
actually, I got to stop you there, because that's not what this channel is even about. Don't take anything that's said on this channel at face value, ever. You guys are supposed to be free thinkers, and I want this made very clear right now. You guys are free thinkers. I have my own opinions and my own views. I've also lived life, but I haven't lived yours.
right,
It's your job to go out there, investigate, take what I say, and see if what I'm saying is right. It could be wrong, because, you know, like I'm talking about a subject right now where I know me and certain people, me and her don't agree with certain aspects of this when it comes to putting our National Guard or a military presence on our border. It's a touchy subject. It's a very touchy subject, and there's good reason why it is. Because there is dangers, because we know how it is. When you give a government or anybody an inch, they like to take a mile. But it is very important that you don't take anything that's said on any platform that anybody says at face value. Do the research, put the time in.
yeah, do your due diligence.
Come up with your own conclusions. Because I don't ever want to
Exactly.
sit here and say, you know, that I'm right, because somewhere I'm wrong. I've lived my own experience. I have my own horror stories, believe me.
Oh, we all have.
And I've learned from them. I've learned from the mistakes I've made on here. But I'm not going to sit here, I tell you I have all the answers or whatever, everything I say is wrong, because we're not accomplishing anything. That's the beauty of these platforms. When I can get people on here, we can start talking with each other, bouncing ideas, even when we don't agree, back and forth. And hopefully we can come up with a better solution. That's what is already offered for us. That's the purpose of anything I do. Don't care where I'm on somebody else's channel. That's what I do. My job is to make you think, make you question, and formulate your own opinions and views. It's also nice to have people in the chat so we can sit here and talk back and forth. Come up with bouncing these ideas, our different views, see if we can't find a better solution, because that's how we formulate better solutions, is through interaction. The very thing that they don't want us doing. They don't want us interacting with each other outside of our communities, outside of our labels. Because when we start doing that, we start seeing those labels are meant to enslave us and divide us.
Yep.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to get that out, because I don't want
Well,
anybody anything said on this channel or anything that I do at face value. Do the research.
well, that's what that's the important thing, and that's what I've been trying to drive home to people the last year predominantly is that for people to do their due diligence and to do their own legwork, do their own research, and don't take my word for it. Don't take any other channel's research, and kind of treat it like a 12-step meeting. If you find something that is useful here or on my channel, grab the information and go do further digging, and as hard as information gathering is getting these days, do your own due diligence and digging, and find out what is really going on, and pay attention, wake up people, and get them talking so that they are starting to go and do their own research. And that don't mean just turning the idiot box on and listening to whatever broadcasting company is spewing rhetoric that was pre-scripted by one company or another company, or whatever that case might be.
Anybody that's ever paid attention, all those entertainment platforms that call themselves media, but they hide under the guise of entertainment. That's what they are. They
Infotainment.
They've always been one-sided. They always fall to the label. They don't stray from that label. It's always been like that since I can remember, even in the 90s. They never strayed from their labels. And it teaches people to stay in those labels. That's part of the programming. It's part of this, like I've talked about time and time again, when we had Democrats. Last year, when they were talking about the sanctuary bill and the Cates law, how you would watch the Democrats say, legal immigrant. There's no such thing as a legal immigrant. You go away. Yes, there is. But it's a different term. It's illegal. When you take away that one word, illegal, you're changing the meaning and definition of it. And therefore, by what they were saying, they were technically, by the laws, how they're worded, right. By removing the one word, illegal, they were right by what they were saying.
And just for our viewers who may catch this later, I did just go and get the case law, HR 3004, the 115th Congress and House Bill 304, the 115th Congress, 2017-2018. Introduced sponsors were Representative Bob Galate, a Republican out of Virginia, introduced on June 22nd, 2017, in the Judiciary branch of the House. And there's been 2 roll call votes on this.
The whole video on it, or at least the 3 hours of it. I streamed it live, and it was a mockery.
But just for complete transparency, since you brought that up, I wanted to put that in the live chat so that people that come back and listen later can go and click on it and say, oh, Kate's bill, what are they talking about there? there's a reference point in the chat that they can click on and go to and say, oh, that's what this is about, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean,
And
you can just go to that website. You go back. You can pull up their archives. You can go back to that date and pull up the whole show of it, them voting on it and talking about it. You'll sit there and you can watch them literally because they've got, and you can download the archived videos as well. And you can sit there and watch them, how they play on the words, remove the words, to where both sides, what they're saying, they're actually right. I mean, it was a mockery of what they're doing to represent that. Nobody called them on it. Nobody ever calls them on it. You know, I sat there and called them on it, but how many people watched that video? Who knows? Definitely can't go by the stats here, but the fact is, who'd want to set 3 hours and watch them do that? One, what they were doing was a waste of taxpayers' money. For real.
all right, hold on. I think my son just got here. I'm going to step away for 2 seconds. Keep talking.
But that's how they do things. They sit there and make long, drawn-out things when it should have been simple. They bring in other things and add other things to the bill that has nothing to do with that bill. Further distracting from the bill. You know, and nobody ever, that's why nobody ever wants to go read that stuff. Because it's filled with so much stuff that doesn't even need to be in it from other things. Or, you know, instead of a simple 100-page, no more than a 100-page document that's all about the bill at hand. No, they can't do that. They got to introduce, slide other things into it. That's why we can't get nothing done. That's why we don't get change around here, because they don't want it. You know, just like the whole issue with sanctuary cities, it's quite simple. They're violating the Constitution. They're violating our federal laws, and it needs to be stopped. Quit giving them funding for anything. They want to do that. Fine. You're on your own. You're not getting no federal funding. You're not getting no federal money, no relief until you start upholding the law. You are kind of right, Tacky. That is a big reason. There's also more. There's other people who don't want to even talk about it. They rather just say, oh, that don't affect me. Oh, that's not happening. And that's become a big problem. And it's the combination of all these things, including what you said. Nobody wants change. They don't want it. They never have. No administration, no matter what it is, has ever want change. They want the status quo. They don't care about us. They never have, because we pay their bills. They live off us. To them, we're cattle. And anytime somebody that wants to step out and break that mold, they'll pass laws, or Supreme Court will rule to where a corporation can spend as much money as they want on the election campaigns and donate as much money as they want as a super PAC, because they are corporations, and therefore they're not a single U.S. citizen. They are a group of citizens. Therefore, the Constitution does not apply to that matter, as the Supreme Court clearly ruled on. But you had justices said what exactly would happen. You'd have corporations doing whatever it pleases them because the Constitution does not apply, or the Bill of Rights does not apply, because it's not a U.S. citizen, so therefore they can do whatever they want. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we see with the censorship. That's what we see with all the stuff that's going on Facebook with the data collections. There's no laws they're really breaking because the Constitution don't apply. And that's the problem. We're always looking for change. We want people to be able to, that really want change, to be able to take those offices. Well, the problem is it always comes back to the greed thing, the money thing. One, they can't afford, the everyday person can't afford to be a politician. And those that can actually build up the money, they get squashed by the super downers, by these corporations. Now let's look at some of these corporations. A lot of these corporations are also foreign owned. So they want to talk about meddling of the election. Oh yeah, it happened. It happened from every one of these corporations. They meddled. It happened from both parties. They meddled through campaign funds, huge donors donating to them, allowing outside advertisers to advertise for them. I mean, if you want to get all the way real with it, yeah, it happened. It wasn't just this country over here. Oh no, it was everywhere. And everyone. It happens all the time. I mean, there shouldn't be no committee about Russia did this. Everyone did it. Every corporation that don't spend millions on it did it. We want to know why they want to censor? Well, they don't want us, to use these platforms to be able to get put into office, because now they see the danger of it. How an everyday person can use these platforms and get their message across on little money and sway an election. That's what they don't want. Or they don't want hot button topic issues like we've talked about tonight, about our border, about these sanctuaries, about what's going over in the UK. Because we start talking about that and we start seeing the real problem and the real danger that we're facing by allowing people just to come marching across our border, unvetted, unchecked, mind you, unvetted. They're not vetted. They're doing it illegally. And many of these have been denied access to visas, denied asylum. Why were they denied? Goes back to that word, vetting. There's a vetting first process. They failed that vetting. So they just come across. So yes, we need something done. And as I pointed out in the Periscope, is it the wall? Well, we build a wall. They'll go under it. They'll find a way over it. Or they'll go around it. There's plenty of water. They can sail and come up the coast. You guys, we're never really going to stop it. But we can stop the major flow of it. The bottom line, unless we have somebody mount every 10, 20 feet along a wall, along that border, we'll never truly be able to stop them from coming across. But I mean, that's the real reality of it. But we can slow it down. But how do you do that? Well, you've got to have bodies on the border. Whether it be police, whether it be National Guard, whether it be Border Patrol, MPs of some sort, you have to have somebody there. Because that is a vast stretch of border that there's many places away. There's tunnels that we haven't even found for them to cross. I mean,
yeah, that was something that they here just in the last week or two, they actually were talking about were these tunnels that they actually found some tunnels that were literally big enough that you could drive semis through underneath the border, not all that far from where these new 25-foot concrete walls were going up. And I was like, really?
Jackie brings up a very good question. Because there are true people that are crossing the border who are trying to flee persecution.
Exactly. And
this is the thing, that they're the very same people. This is, it's hurting them, because when you have certain governments in other countries give a 20-day pass for people, but won't allow them to get visas or anything like that, work visas and stuff. You know, it's setting it up for people to cross. No, you're not naive at all. It's a good question. And it's a question that, yes, there are legitimate people who are crossing that border who aren't criminals, who aren't radicals or anything. They're just trying to flee persecution. And that's other issues, because I'd be the first one to tell you that our immigration policy has been broken for a very long time, and it does need fixed. We do need ability to allow the right people in, the people that deserve to be here, because a lot of those people you're talking about, Tacky, are the very ones that are coming here that want the American dream, the concept of it, believe in it, that would respect our rights, they would become role model citizens because they know what it's like to be persecuted. So I'm not saying I'm against everything. I'm saying there's a lot of change that needs to be done. And that's what talking about these things is. Having somebody like you in the chat who brings this up. This very questions about what about the ones that are. And that falls under that we have a broken system. We have a broken immigration system. But every time anybody tries to do anything with that, oh, we'll get a federal Ninth Circuit court over here in 14 different states that'll try to bash anything, so there can't be any change. Then we have politicians who don't want that. And that's politicians on both sides, because they all go after that vote. And that's where we find ourselves in. That's what makes this topic such a hot button topic, no matter how we look at it, you know, because there's people in every country that's trying to flee some of the persecutions. I mean, the American dream was that. People from other countries used to see what happened here, the freedoms we have. They'd want that. They want to be able to better themselves for their children. That's what made America so great. That it's still, the concept and the idea of it is what makes America great, even to this day, even though we're constant. Those very freedoms and ideologies are constantly under attack. You know, some of the issue has to go. I mean, some of you guys have seen the report. We had Biden down in Central America telling them to come over this way. Come across our borders. We'll take you in. No. You know, there has to be a measure of checking. You know, when you start controlling that border, you'll start eliminating the wrong ones from coming in, and you'll start getting back to getting those that are truly fleeing persecution. But until we can control our border, fix our immigration system, fix our vetting system, I mean, it's going to be tough no matter how we do it. But before we can even do that, we have to also take in consideration, we have to eliminate sanctuary cities that harbor, because they're harboring criminals. They're actually inviting the wrong ones in, because it's not, they're going to get the small influx of the refugees that are actually refugees seeking political asylum. They're going to get those, but they're going to get all the criminals that are trying to abuse and slide through the cracks so they can disperse and hide. I mean, my fear is putting the military on the border. It would be like building the DMZ here in the United States. We'll have shots being fired across, back and forth. We don't want to see that either. And that's some people's fears. Like I said, there's so many aspects when we start talking about how do we defend our border, how do we secure it, how do we make sure the right people are getting in, people that deserve to be here. In, because there's a lot of people that deserve to be here. And how do we keep the ones that don't out? How do we stop the human smuggling, the trafficking, the drugs, the weapons.
That brings up another very valid, relevant topic in and of itself. How many of our missing and exploited that have ended up down there in Central America that were fortunate enough to have parents that took a chance and had their kids microchipped, and it was very very helpful in finding them, but it was very, very critical. But the only problem is that majority of them, by the time they found them, they have been in reefer cars for as much as 21 to 28 days and had already deceased. And no, Tacky, you're not naive. You know, a lot of this stuff you didn't know. And it's okay to not know, because a lot of this stuff, it's not known. A lot of people don't know because you don't hear it on majority of the channels out here. We go into areas that nobody else wants to talk about or is afraid to talk about, and it's scary for a lot of people. You know, you're an inspiration to me, Tacky. You really are. And it does me good to be put in a situation that I need to practice a little bit of bite the lip, put the tongue in the cheek, and not talk like a sailor type of situation, you know. No, you're not a commenter. You're a very relevant part of the community here on Sons and Daughters of Liberty. And, you know, it makes it very relevant. Anybody that comes here is very relevant. And I'm sure that Drew will echo that I don't think I've ever heard you say once that you have a troll issue.
Oh, it's good I don't. That's because I've kind of showed them that I don't care what you post. This is a free platform. And I'm pretty good at finding ways to keep things on the topic I'm talking about. Even with trolls, I'll find a way to use what they're saying to get my message across. And once you do that a few times, they go away. And the best way, you don't feed trolls. You ignore them. Let them do.
Kill them with kindness.
Don't even kill them with kindness. Just ignore them. They don't exist. If more people would do that, guess what? They go away. Because they're not getting a reaction out of anybody. Everybody's just ignoring them. What's people hate? They hate being ignored. Yes, that is also a good point. My channel is small. And I actually enjoy that because I've been trolled, though. Not on this channel. I got trolled on another channel that I have. And it didn't go so well for that troll. That troll, needless to say, I'd still like to see if he actually did that supposedly college report that he was writing. It would have been an interesting report, but he was a troll nonetheless. But yeah, they learn even on that channel to leave me be. But that's the beauty of this channel. It is small, and I like that. But as I pointed out on my Periscope, there is a downside to that. Like yesterday's or the day before, or the last actually 2 videos I've done, live streams I've done, I've had a good message that I wish more people would have been able to hear and receive. And I actually got to thank Be Rich. I meant to do that at the beginning of the show for sharing that and sharing my channel on his channel and recommended people to sub. Thank you. Even though I don't personally go out and do that because I enjoy. I think he's found out too, cause as he did it, because he did on Periscope, not Periscope, but Patreon. He did his after hours for his Patreon subscribers, and he found out how nice it is to be able to sit here with a small audience and interact with people. I mean, sometimes it's nice to have the big channel, especially when you have a message. But at the same time, it's hard to interact with the chat when the chat's moving a mile a minute, or when I got to go in there and slow my chat down. So therefore, there's a longer delay in the interaction. So there is disadvantages. There's advantages.
I actually run mine in slow mode for that very reason.
I was wondering.
Because well, you have login, you have the login info so that you can actually
I was wondering, I was referring to Tacky. But now that I know that, I didn't know that. Did I interact? See, that's, I interact with the chat. Most of the time, I've got this pulled up. I'm staring at, as you see when I share my screen, I'm actually on the viewing as a viewer as I'm doing the show.
Yeah, I try to do that as well.
And that's, that's why, there's pros and cons to everything, just like what we're talking about. There's pros and cons to it. For every good thing I can think of, having the National Guard or MPs or some form of policing on our border, we're going to find just as many cons. Because there is. Because there's always that mentality, you give them an inch, they might just take a mile. And I'm a firm believer, I don't like giving anybody an inch on anything, especially when it comes to our Constitution. And we are that. When we start talking National Guard, military, we're starting to get a little bit into the Constitution there, but we also have to remember our Constitution needs to be protected and defended, and what's the job of the military?
I'll be back in a minute. I just got company.
Right. Job of our military is to protect and honor our Constitution, to protect the sovereignty of our nation. So would not them protecting our border be that? I mean, I get it. I really do, because I can think of how horribly this could go very wrong if not set up and monitored and done right. I was wondering how you found me. I listen to a variety of channels from various different niches and groups and communities, because you learn more, you see more that way. And just like I follow a variety of people on Twitter, on Facebook, and any other platform I'm on, because you have to. It's like I also said, you have to step outside the box. When you step outside your doors, when you go to the store, you're surrounded by a variety of people with different labels that adhere to different labels. Some are Democrats, some are Republicans, some are Catholic, Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, pagan, all walks of life, just at the restaurant or the store you're walking through. Some people are conversating. Some people don't even know each other. They're just having, looks like a good old time talking. They don't know what the person's political beliefs unless the person brings it up. You know, I see that, but then I see we put ourselves in these little boxes, these labels here on all these platforms, only adhere to a certain community, never go outside it. Don't understand that a lot of the things we're seeing happening in our communities also happen to another community. I mean, we have a powerful and a beautiful platform to talk about these things. And eventually, we might not have this. Eventually, we might not be able to come on here and talk about all the pros and cons to border walls, sanctuary cities, what we've seen happen over in Europe. You know, that's, you know, will that happen here? Some will probably say, oh no, that'll never happen here. Well, I'm not going to be that guy. Because it does happen. You're always going to have bad apples that try to abuse the system. You're always going to have criminals. We don't call them criminals for nothing because they don't care what the law says. They're going to do as they please. And we have that in all walks of life. No matter what label you claim, each label has their own bad apples or criminals, people that are going to use and abuse the system, and you're going to have those that don't. But right now we got too many people that want to stay silent or say, oh, that don't happen to us. That never happened to our community. That's because you guys are talking about it. Then months from now, years from now, we'll see what happened on Facebook, where the very same things that so many of us sat there and told you was happening, that was actually, some of that was in the NDAA bill. Oh no, that don't happen. Come to find out, all that stuff we said, not to say I was right, not to say that this guy was right, not to toot my own horn, but how many times do we got to repeat that? How many times do you guys got literally have to see it to believe it? Or it has to happen to you before you believe it? You know, there is no good answer for anything. For anything we can come up with, we're going to find pros. We're going to find tons of cons. Then we're going to have to look at the other aspects. How are they going to manipulate and use and abuse this? Because those are things we need to talk about. Because when we point those things out, we become aware and vigilant and watchful. Make sure it doesn't. You know, just like when Trump said, take away a due process. No, that's wrong. That's unconstitutional. But for those that did mention it and bring it up, oh, we got ridiculed and scorned because we talked against a label. Make America great again. Well, guess what? Taking away due process is not making America great again. That's wrong. And he retracted his statement, but it had to be pointed out to him. You know, people had to stand up and say stuff. That's the dangers of adhering to a label. You know, none of us are perfect. We don't live in a perfect world, but we do live in a world that has many cultures, many beliefs, many views, many opinions, many different things. The only thing that keeps us from seeing those things is ourselves, when we put ourselves in a little box, hide behind a label, and become blind when those things start being taken away from those other people. Thinking, oh, then we hear about thinking, oh, it never happened to us. Guess what? They just reached your domino. You're next. It'll eventually come back to, you're next. It might take a little while, but eventually you're going to feel and receive the same treatment. That's why we got to keep talking about these things. That's why I don't care how touchy the subject is. I mean, yes, the border is a very touchy subject, especially when we're starting talking about how to protect it. But we do know something needs to be done. Because if it's not something doesn't happen soon, how long before we start seeing what's been happening over in France, Britain, Germany, Netherlands, and all those countries? Because it will eventually happen here. Or something far worse. And that is something we should all see as common ground and want to prevent. I don't have the answers. I don't know the proper way to solve this problem. But we will come up with ideas the more we talk about it with each other, share these ideas. Because, they're still part of me. I don't even know if the National Guard is the right idea. But I do know something needs to be done. And I do believe, for the most part, the best way to protect that border right now would be with the military. Or the National Guard, not so much the military.
Right.
Because the National Guard and the reserves, we can go that far. But what tools are we going to give them? Because we got to give them tools. And we don't want, shooting back and forth. We don't want to turn our border into the DMZ.
That's my greatest fear is that that could happen.
That's always on the back of my mind when we start talking about that, because it only takes one person to throw something. And I've seen the videos of borders, what our Border Patrol goes through out there. And of course, I know people that are in Border Patrol. And I know
Yeah, so do I.
I've known people that washed out, that came out of the military. Here's one for you. They came out of the military and washed out of the Border Patrol.
Yep.
They served in wars and can't handle what they're seeing right here on our U.S. soil. That should tell you guys how bad it really is. Because these guys have been through war. They've seen death. It's a whole different story when you bring that into your own backyard.
Yep. Yeah, that's a very there's only one other entity that has a higher turnover ratio than the Customs and Border, and that is the BLM. The Bureau of Land Management has a much higher turnover rate yet. Their turnover ratio is about every 3 to 7 months. And that is in part because of the constant.
Cigarette.
Say what?
Now you're just teasing with that cigarette.
I'm sorry, but I'm arguing with other issues that are my blood sugar's deciding to take a dump, and it's either smoke a cigarette and add 3 ounces of sugar to my coffee, or have Jello and a cigarette, and that'll work.
I'm pretty much over the cigarette thing. As long as I don't smell it.
I actually hope that you if you can kick the butts, you're so much better off in the long run. I more power to you. There's a lot of people that have tried to quit, and they can't. it is, but, you know, not to sound old or nostalgic, I started smoking in 1985. And, you know, I've tried so many times, and you know, rather than picking up anything else, it's a lot safer for me to have a actual cigarette than it is a lot of that garbage that is floating around on the streets today. Far and above. And I actually, for the first time, and I think out of all the live streams that I've done on many different platforms, I actually got a written warning in an email just the other day from YouTube about my constant repetitive smoking on camera.
You can actually be demonetized for that. That's the part that nobody understood when I sat there and brung up AdWords. AdWords is part of your, what we also know as AdSense, is now AdWords. That's where, when you monetize your channels or do any form of advertisement on any Google platform, it's run off there. And in their policy, which I've linked to the blog I did, smoking is also on there. No tobacco, no smoking. It is
no vaping, no vaping. None of that stuff. And after I had already canceled my AdSense stuff already, but they
let's not get into the foul language part. Even language is covered in there. You can't do nothing. You want to monetize, basically, you can't do nothing other than what they tell you can do.
And I've always been against the status quo, but they're like, well, if you want smoke on camera and while you're on video or in front of the camera and whatnot, then maybe we could help you out and boost your content and whatnot. And I'm like, I fired back and I said, what? I said, because in some of the Middle Eastern countries, it's forbidden. I said, in Europe, it's not. In Canada, it's not.
Actually not forbidden in the Middle East either. Smoking's in almost every culture.
It is. And then they brought up
hookah came from the Middle East, and it's made for smoking. Well, besides the other stuff, it's made for smoking tobacco.
And then they mentioned my tasteful tattoos of a rose and a band name that I worked with back in 2012. That is partially covered on my right arm. And they're like, if your ink work was covered as well, you know, then it would make you even more marketable. And I'm like, you know, whatever, you know. You've never asked me to come to any of your events. And the one that you did, you canceled me. You know, so it's not, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth sort of thing. Why should I be forced to change who exactly I am to fit your narrative and your mold? I've not changed who I am for anybody, and I'm not going to start now. I said, I got the name Free Spirit for a reason. I said, I am who I am. I am very raw and I am very real. And
I mean, for real, I could use a fag right now, but hey, I'm trying to quit. Oh, damn. I just used a trigger word, didn't I?
yeah, you did.
But for anybody that don't know, that's a cigarette. You're in Europe. That's what you asked for.
Exactly. I was just going to say, I was just going to clarify that for all those people that don't know, because my sister is in Europe, and
I
we get together.
Like this. We're just having a gay old time.
Oh, hell yeah.
But heaven forbid, I just triggered somebody. Good. That's my job. Because if I trigger, I need to think and question something.
Exactly. You know, and the interesting fact is, if you go to lower socioeconomic regions, you are more apt to see more cigarette and cigar advertisements in the inner city than you will in upper class neighborhoods. Guaranteed.
Just like you'll see more of the cheaper liquor, cheaper alcohol, malt liquors in those communities. And but when you reach the cities, you'll see the high-end liquor, the high-end wines, your bourbons, your scotches. I mean, but people don't see that. They don't get that. They don't understand that's how they do things, you know. It's just like, I mean, no, we're not going there in this one. I'm not even going to go there. I'll save that one for another video.
Now, just for everybody's knowledge, today's Thursday or Wednesday. Well, actually, it's Thursday now. I am planning on going live tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. EST. I'm tentatively planning on going live. It's going to depend upon how I'm feeling. I have not scheduled the event because of the fluidity of my situation. I can't really nail it down in stone at this moment for all things regarding my channel, and I would expect Drew to pop in on that one, because that one is liable to be a little more off the hinges and a little bit more raw.
I'm not feeling so much any of those right now. You're not achieving anything.
It's more. It's not
more my mindset lately. The fact is, we want change, and just being all in your face ain't bringing change right now. It's not. I don't know. It's just I'm not feeling that type of stuff right now. There's a time and place for it. We've talked about that. Right now, the time and place for me is not all that raw, uncut, up in your face. I feel that's the wrong way to be going about some things right now. But it depends on the issue, too. There are some hot top button issues where you might want to be raw and all up in your face. I don't know. It depends. We'll have to discuss what that issue, what you want to talk about, because I don't know what you want to talk about.
This was in reference to one of your vids you did earlier in the week, or last week, that you did. I forget which one it was, but it was, and it's actually highlighted right underneath the chat. Are we seeing history repeat itself?
Okay, yeah, the bookkeeping thing. That one,
Yeah.
I plan on revisiting. But that one's not going to be a raw. That will not have no part of anything raw and on.
I mean, it's not really a blatant, straight up, uncut, uncensored, but it's done with,
Thank you.
With taste, and with respect, but it's also done with more more context, and more a little bit more data. I'm gonna get up in the morning and
about a couple people you wanted to see if they'd actually want to be a part of that as well, especially that taught school and stuff that would have access to history books.
Yeah, I actually have a meeting at 8 a.m. with
books from when I went to school.
I actually have a meeting tomorrow morning with I wasn't able to get in contact with that particular history person. He's tied up with his second job. I'm not at liberty to go into that on air, but you and I have discussed his other job. He's actually in theater at the moment, and so I'm not able to have him on. He did when I talked with his significant other about it today. She said that he is down for he won't go live, but he will do a on-camera interview. But I was able to make a phone call to the local school, and they are going to allow me to borrow overnight a current textbook, a current history textbook. So, which is kind of rare, but we're going to tear into that, and I only got access to the textbook for 24 hours. And then I have to return it the next day because they only have limited copies of the textbook, and so I'm going to grab it while I have the opportunity. And they would not allow me to, when I requested any previous old textbooks, they flat denied that request straight out, that if it's
chat.
You
pay attention to chat?
I don't understand. I don't even get. Yeah, that's kind of strange.
It's actually, it's not the first time I've heard that said. I've heard a couple people say that as well.
And that, when I contacted my the principal and the vice principal with a law enforcement officer mediating this, and he was explaining what I was doing and whatnot. He was like, this is actually can be very beneficial to the school district to allow this to happen. And when I requested previous year's textbooks for history, particularly U.S. history, their response was, we returned them to the publisher for either destruction, or they were burned in the school's incinerator for added heat. Why would you burn history?
Well, I mean, we know why. I mean, same reason,
exactly.
same reason why they don't let students bring it home, so the parents can might accidentally see it and read it and find out they're not being taught history, the right history, or they might come into there, it's like, what do you mean the Boston Tea Party never happened? Never.
However, I have talked with the local library, and they are working on checking with the interstate or the state library loan program to see if they may have access to outdated textbooks in U.S. history that I may either be able to purchase or get on loan, or they may even actually have one in stock. So this will be very interesting, and I've been reaching out to several school districts throughout the area so that I'm getting multiple views, not just one district, but multiple districts here. And then we truly are getting a very broad spectrum view of what is going on. Why? Because every school district has a different viewpoint. Because this is old French Indian territory, and some areas are really trying to cover certain things up, and some areas are not as aggressive about it. One area school district are still using history books from as old as 15 years ago.
That's kind of a good thing.
And the reason being, it's not so much of that they want the newer history books. It's the fact that, one, the teachers are still operating on contracts from as much as 15 or 20 years ago, that the schools are that poor and they are that underfunded, that they cannot afford to get the new updated textbooks.
And the other thing, Tacky, what it is also about is to see what has been removed from them, what they aren't teaching.
Exactly.
Goes back to what she's referring, what we're talking kind of talking about, which is way off subject what this show's supposed to be about tonight, but coffee and chat, so pretty much anything talked about is what I did about the new book burning. What parts of history has been taken out of the history books that you guys aren't being taught now? I know, like, out in California, a friend of mine, her daughter in her school, when she was 10, they weren't taught about the Boston Tea Party. It was removed from their history books because it was a Common Core school. So the Boston Tea Party never happened because it wasn't in their history book.
Yep.
So that's kind of... Yep. Actually, you're quite right on that, though. Even in my time, most of our budget did go to our sports programs. Our sports programs
Exactly.
always been like that, Tacky. Every time a levy came up, that's what they threatened to take away. And you also got a reason why do they do that, because in a lot of cities that, or towns and stuff that schools are low budget, a lot of the only way for students to get out of that state, out of that county, and to get into college is through sports. It's not so much through academics. They got a better chance of getting a scholarship through sports. So that's why they always use that to threaten to take things away.
Well, this brings up another interesting. This brings up.
Here's the Common Core philosophy, and this is what they've said even in Congress about the Common Core when they've admitted it. Anything that leaves a blemish of what America is today is to be removed from the history out of the history books in school. The Boston Tea Party is a blemish. The Indian Wars are a blemish on American history because it's darker periods. That's their philosophy. The truth is, why is that stuff so important in history? It's so we don't repeat it, so we learn from it, so we don't make the same mistakes. That's why that stuff's so important. Yes, there's some dark periods in our history. Happens in any nation that conquers another for the land. But that stuff's important because that's how we learn, so we don't repeat these things. So we don't go to some other place and do the same things, commit the same atrocities. So, when we talk about World War II, when we talk about where the concept of book burning originally really got its name from, it was changing the narrative. Because here's what happens when you take all that stuff out of there. Eventually, we get to a point where the younger generations, like, as I pointed out, a certain Wikipedia article on the Holocaust never happened. Well, we're getting in a time and age where those survivors of the Holocaust, those World War II veterans, they're in their 70s, 80s, 90s. There's not many left. And eventually, that will be history. And if they dictate certain aspects, take certain things away, or they say this article is factual, and they're going to base fact-checking off this Wikipedia article, and there's no living people around to refute that, who lived through it. Now they're teaching the younger generation that this never happened. And they changed history. They changed the narrative. And that's why we can't allow that type of stuff to happen. That's why I think we're seeing a lot of the younger generations, the problems we're seeing is because they've omitted certain things of history, so you guys don't know. And it started way back. It started well before Common Core. This started back in the 90s. Really,
Oh, yeah.
really implementing this. Me and my sister's generation were probably the last two generations to actually be taught real history. Then there's some argument where we taught real history because how much of my history I was taught was different from what she was taught when she went to school or when my dad went to school.
Yep.
It's the things like that we have to be careful about. And because it also, I can tie this right back into what we were talking about tonight. When we start changing words, omitting words like illegal, or when we start using terms sanctuary city or refugee, they have meaning, but they also have context in how they're used in a word or in a phrase. When you start teaching otherwise, you start teaching, well, there's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. It's an immigrant or an illegal. Yeah, or it's just mind-blowing the tricks they play. And a lot of it, I want to see the history books. What are you guys being taught? What are some of these people taught? We already know what's coming out of the Common Core. I've seen that. You know, they haven't been too shy about it either and how they talk about it. But I also want to know what's being taught in other histories, the schools that don't promote Common Core. Because if you guys aren't being taught what we were taught, you know, or as I've witnessed firsthand with a 10-year-old out in California that we argued with for an hour because the Boston Tea Party never happened. And after that, she pulled her kids out of that school and started homeschooling them. Because that was, I mean, it's like, okay, the kid's just playing around. No, it wasn't nowhere to be found in their history book when it came to anything about the Revolutionary War. It was only certain aspects of it. And it was all these things that led up to it that were just removed, not talked about. So when we bring up taxation without representation, how many people know where that came from? If you're in a Common Core school, you don't know where taxation without representation came from. So therefore, why does it even have any meaning in the Constitution? We just removed a part of history, so we got something in our Constitution that nobody knows why it's there. What was the reason for it? Well, the Boston Tea Party was part of it. And that's where, you know, taxation without representation was kind of first said in history. It is important. But I also know this show's going on 3 hours.
Yeah, and it's good thing I went and took care of the situation. But the other thing that I did want to bring up, as long as we were going back a ways, I went looking at a couple of things just real briefly in my local history on my local school's history curriculum in a city where one of the largest peace treaties between the Native Americans of the United States was signed right here in my home city, where well over 100 different nations were signed. Yet something so significant in our nation's history, even that is not being taught. And that's the Treaty of 1825. Even something so significant as that is not even being made reference to. In fact, they make almost zero reference to any of those treaties or scars on the American history period. And I found that very very interesting that they would go that far, but then again, that's not surprising. Um, you know, I've got, like I said, I've got some uh trips that I got to make out tomorrow morning very early. Um, and there's uh, a bunch of paperwork that has to be filled out uh, to even get this textbook, and I basically got to sign my life away promising that I will not deface, demark, or anything on it. And it's subject, it may get pushed to Friday depending upon how the day goes tomorrow. And if that's the case, it might get pushed to Monday. Why? Because history, if history is erased, we are doomed to repeat it for one. And that is part of why mankind has made the same mistakes over and over and over again for centuries, because we keep going back and erasing history. And this nation is not the first to go back and do this. Other countries have done the exact same thing, where they're erasing their textbooks, deleting certain things. It just happens. Did I lose you guys?
No, I muted
Uh,
my I muted mine because sometimes you come over so loud because when I use the one earbud, use
oh,
the Suni
oh,
Bluetooth,
okay.
it actually come over on the mic. I think that's where some of that distortion earlier was coming from.
Oh, okay.
I told you this mic picks up every.
Everything.
I
Uh,
can tell when I'm using this mic because I can hear everything in the background after I upload it or after it processes and stuff. And I actually, when I'm sharing the links or stuff, doing stuff, and I hear the thing play in the background, I can hear all the stuff. So
they but we're not the only country in the world that use it, that it is constantly erasing things out of their textbooks. It's one of the main reasons why they deleted and quit making the encyclopedias and world books and stuff like that, because it was a very quick, fast, and easy way to delete the past, or an attempt to delete the past, making it harder for people to go back and look things up the old-fashioned way.
and the other reason, and pretty much this is going to be a closing too. The other reason to see these textbooks and stuff because a lot of parents out there work two jobs. Both parents are working. They don't have time to see what's been changed in the textbooks. How many people have actually got a hold of the newer textbooks and did a proper research. So we know how much has been changed. Most families, goes something I pointed out a lot, most families don't sit at the dinner table anymore, have dinner at the dinner table because they're working sometimes two jobs, both parents. And we're living in a day and age where I know a lot of schools now where they don't even have textbooks. How's that one for you? Everything's on the iPad. They got a little program. In fact, I can actually, one of the programs they use, we have access to on Google. And their curriculum and stuff all programmed onto these, including the textbooks and stuff for the iPads that are required now for every student to have. So it's all more of a digital format. So therefore, you know, there is no textbooks to read and see. I mean, we haven't got, that's not in every school system right now, but it's getting there. I mean, so it is important to be able to look at these things, because I know for a fact there's things that have been changed. But I know from the prospect of the Common Core stuff, most of us researched that thoroughly, have been there, done that, or witnessed it. Sometimes we forget the regular school system. Yes, it's a big push. And that falls onto the category why we see a lot of the pushes for certain groups to be the only fact checkers. When we start playing in the digital realm of things, and they get control of the narratives, like they want to quote Wikipedia, it's factual, when in all actuality it's not. Some of it is. Don't get me wrong. There's some stuff on there, but there's plenty of stuff on there that is not factual. That is one-sided. And there's some people on there that do great stuff and put the facts on there as best they can. So I'm not saying they're all wrong, but that also is coming from an academic standpoint. We were told never to use it because it's not credible for any research in the academic field. You can use it to make references, to find links, but it's for a faster way to find links, but you can't use it as a source if you want it to have credit, be credible.
Yep.
With that said, I don't really have nothing to close on other than hope you guys enjoyed. I didn't mean for it to be this long. Of course, I say that all the time. My videos aren't short, never will be.
Yeah, but it'll be one of those that, like I said, you can to stay up to date, either follow me on my YouTube. You can also follow me on FSPN, Free Spirit, on Twitter. That's probably the easiest and the fastest way to find me on Twitter, and get to me directly. And I generally try to reach out, get back to you as quickly as possible. And, you know, barring nothing going sideways, and keeping in mind that this is not a thin textbook. It might take me a few hours to get through. Don't worry about spelling tacky. It's all good. You know, it's everybody misspells my name, so it's pretty easy to I usually just use that because everybody else would misspell it the other way. But that's just a short form of how I spell my name. But not that hard to find. You can also find me on my channel. Not that hard to find. I do respond. Usually within you're very welcome, Tacky. Not that hard to find. I'm gonna try to go live tomorrow night. Depends upon how long it takes me to go through this textbook, and if I can find other textbooks from other areas as well. You know, this is important. And I also have information on, and I'll have more information regarding the status of where those buses are going to be at by tomorrow night. I think the last that I heard, they were approaching the Mexico City area. Was the last that I heard. And there's a bunch of them. I think there's 11 in total that are coming. That's a lot of people. As many as, could be as many as 5,000 people in total.
Yeah, don't blame me, Danny. I don't use my full real name either. I use just the variation of it, though.
And that we have to out here.
Not that it's hard. My first real name is.
We have to for anonymity and safety reasons. Because of with the number of people that have had issues, it makes it a lot safer to use a hard alias. It just makes it so much easier to use our screen names in the long run. The only problem is sometimes you get caught up in where the separation is, and I'll be doing a separate video on that in the probably this weekend. I'll be doing a separate video on that alone. More of an uncensored open Q&A on that. I'm not sure if that's going to happen this weekend, what day, what time, because I'm a huge racing nut, and health for me is always a major situation too, and that might go on my backup channel. I don't know yet. I've not decided, but you know, because there are just some things that you want to keep separate and away from your main. I don't know. I haven't really decided how to play that, but you know, there's a certain level of transparency that that people deserve to know to a certain degree. But on that note, until we meet again, y'all, be kind to your neighbors, be kind to your family. Most importantly, be kind to yourself. Because if you can't be kind to yourself and love yourself, you can't love anybody else. Till next time, namaste.
You guys all enjoy the rest of your short week. I will catch you guys on the next one, whenever that may be. You guys all know me by now. I'm spur of the moment. And I probably will be coming back to revisit this as a topic by itself. Because I'm not done with this topic. And when I'm saying topic, I'm talking about the border wall and stuff.
Oh
Thanks.
yeah, that's gonna be a kind of like the rambling minds when I keep waiting for a.
Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind. That's going to be that topic and that topic only.
I've been waiting for another installment of that.
Yeah, when I do Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind, there's no set topic. It's just me rambling. I did that tonight.
I actually had somebody ask me about that from Europe that has been listening to it when she's on her train ride from where she lives to Man City, which is about a 4-hour train ride, and she actually rather gets into it. And she asked me, when's the next installment of that? And I'm like, I don't know.
Do that
I
when I just need to clear my mind. That's my outlet. I'm just like writing's part of my outlet. So I've kind of started writing again. So I've been doing some writing, and from time to time, I wanted to do a Periscope. Try to do a Periscope video once a week because that's for Twitter. That's for my followers on Twitter. I have this thing where I like giving back to my followers. I like, because some of them don't come over here and see this stuff over here on YouTube.
right,
So I like to
right.
talk to them for, there. So I used my Rambling of Chaotic Minds, which prompted, believe it or not, that's kind of what my Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind was, what this tonight's was supposed to be about. I used them to, just let my mind flow and ideas come out. And usually a lot of times I end up coming up on topics like this that I want to talk about, but I'm hashing them out, playing the little mind games with myself on it, how I want to bring it about, or just get it. Sometimes I might find out it's a subject that it's not even worth talking about. It had its moment of thought, and it needed to be let go. It's kind of why I enjoy the Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind, because it takes somebody that actually knows me. I mean,
That'd be a good book format, actually.
You know Rob, and he'll tell you how that my mind works completely different from most people. I'm thinking 1,000 things at once, all the time.
And welcome to my world.
And there's no set thought process. He'll be the first one to also tell you that you don't give me something simple, you give me something complex. I think on complexity, which is why I do need certain things like Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind to get to the simplicity parts to it. But yet, I love simplicity, right? Not, but I also like getting to the point as fast as I can.
That'd almost be a good book sequel.
Yeah, I'm not doing no books. I did my own magazine. No, I've had my writing. It's something. Oh, we'll do this on the closing note. Just a little bit about me. I did go to college. Most people have mentioned that. I went for an art major. Yes, I was an artist. But I had to have an English class. Well, the only English class was available was English comp. Well, mind you, high school dropout, got my GED, and scored third highest just to enter the college I went to. But I scored third highest to enter on the pre-entry test. So wasn't stupid by far. This shows you can do things even on a GED if you put your mind to it. But I didn't have the concept of what credit hours were or certain terminologies. But English comp was available, the only one that was available, so yeah, I took it because I had to. But I also didn't understand that, 14 was the minimum of credit hours to be considered a full-time student, and I took 21, which was the maximum at the time. So I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into. I didn't understand that part. And when I found out what English comp was, oh, I was hating life. Oh, and the worst part of it was only on Friday, and Wednesday was the last day you could drop or change your class. By the time I had my first English comp class, so I was stuck, screwed, and I hate writing. I actually found out the one thing that I hated the most, I actually come to love, and actually was quite good at it. And it was probably a good thing because by then I was also realizing the thing that I loved and that I was really good at, I had lost interest because I was so burnt out from doing art. But yet I traded one form of art for another. And sometimes it happens. I mean, granted, is either one of those things probably good to have a basic career on, go for a degree in? No. The things we know now, we wish we had known back then. But I did something that most people said I'd never would never do because I dropped out of school. I went to college. I got my GED and went to college and paid my way. And I found something that I liked and was good at that I've been able to use later down the road. From creating my own magazine, use it in the academic forums as well because I've published on academia. And it's been a joy to have because it's also that one thing I can go to clear my mind. You know, when everything's bleak, doom, gloom, I've got an outlet that I can just go and just forget about everything and clear my mind. And that's the important thing. Find those things in life. Because those are the things that keep you solid, keeps you firm, and keeps your feet on the ground. When everything seems like it's closing in, you have that outlet. Find that outlet. And enjoy it. But like I said, I didn't want this thing to go this long. I hope you guys all enjoy. I will catch you on the next one. Until then, I will see you later.